If more of you supported the show, I'd be less sick of podcasts.
The blah blah blah.
Sending out good vibes.
The blah blah blah.
Good vibes.
Blah
Good vibes.
the blah blah blah.
Good vibes. Good vibes.
108 breaths of deep gratitude and prayers for guidance and protection. And put on a didgeridoo and shamanic drumming track. Shivers or vibrations and stuff like that.
So who knows the answer may say it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the evidence and the indications are clearly pointing to a trait to build with enormous blocks and less gravity and larger beings.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Grimerica Show. We got a great show coming out with Mario Buildreps, I think from Italy or something. He was over in Europe someplace when we talked to him. It was another one of those shows we had to do on a Sunday morning, but it turned out to be fantastic. We got into like the growing earth stuff and maybe crustal displacement, and we're talking about the megalithic structures and cramming it all into one fantastic episode. I was pretty impressed.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting how we find out about him after his work is pretty much culminated into his website and all that. Like, I feel like he's at the tail end of his work, but he had a whole team around him, and I'll read the bio later before we finish up this lazy ramblings in this intro. But yeah, really interesting how they kind of lined up all the megalithic sites with these poles, and they ended up sort of coming up with 5 different directions, 5 poles from all these megalithic sites, and they've got a database on it and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, it's just cool to come out to realize there's another person doing all this research that we haven't really talked to yet, and coming to some very interesting conclusions, through a totally different avenue. Yeah,
Totally. That was a fun show. Quite impressed with Mr. Mario. So, did we say we're going to have him on again? I can't remember.
I don't think so.
We should dig back into that stuff a little bit. It's fun. Maybe we should do some Egypt shows before we go to Egypt, though.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That is coming up fast.
I've had somebody lined up, but I'm not hearing back from them now about the Egyptian Book of the Dead and all that. So,
Yeah, that is coming up fast.
Yeah.
It's like 3 months away. Checking out Egypt. Of course, I'm in the UK for the day and night. On the night of the 10th, I believe, November 10th. Or at least you'll probably end up at the same flight as me, I'm assuming, or close to. I'm in town all day on the 10th, and I don't leave until the evening of the 11th. So we don't know exactly what we're going to do yet, but we're going to do something. I got our buddy over there, Graham Gainsford, is going to have a car rented and take the time off work so that he can be my chauffeur, I guess, in a sense, and my driver, since I don't know what the fuck I'm doing on the wrong side of the road in the roundabouts, and I don't want to learn in one day, and I don't want to think about it. So he's going to deal with that. We don't have a plan yet, but we're going to do something, and then I think we're going to find some place to go for like maybe dinner and some sort of like pub-like thing, someplace where people can easily come and join us. I had a couple people message me and ask where. I don't know yet, but keep messaging me because I'm going to have that as sort of the list of people to let know when we do know. And it'll be someplace, where we can easily just hang out and hang out for a few hours and do a little meetup sort of thing, I guess.
right on. Sounds good.
It should be fun. And hopefully you'll be there and not under arrest someplace.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be there. You don't want me driving you around?
No.
Probably not even though I've done it before and I can do it. I'm capable.
Well, it just seems like a headache to go and rent a car and everything. Graham can have that all done already and just like pick us up. Bing, bang, boom.
Actually, I had to have an international driver's license before too, so you might need that.
How do you get that?
I don't remember. It was like 33 years ago, 32 years ago, 33 years ago.
I was 8.
Yeah. Just a piece of paper, really. Wasn't anything fancy. I don't even know. Maybe you don't need them anymore. I don't know. Maybe like my Canadian one, just like it's good enough in the States, maybe that's good enough in Europe and the UK now. I don't know.
There you have it. There you have it. Well, I didn't get that driver's license, and then of course we're in Egypt for a while, and then so I think I've narrowed it down to 3 places to stop in on the way home. And the top of the list are Amsterdam, Athens, or Rome. So I'm just sort of collecting some general feedback from people on where they think is best, especially considering it is the end of November. Amsterdam, which I'm thinking might be a little cold and dark by the end of November, but I need to hear from some people that maybe live there, have been there. Athens looks like it's in a pretty good spot, and so does Rome. My concern with those 2 places, I might not be able to speak the language. Well, I definitely can't. So it's like, how good is it just being able to speak English there?
Yeah. Why don't you wait until we have somebody on our other show who's coming up, and I'm just looking for my notes here. I was just looking at this today. He's got a book or a course or something on ancient Greece, the new ancient Greece or something. Michael,
there's probably some cool stuff to see in Greece.
But I mean, it'll be fantastic to talk to this person who's kind of got revived this sort of talk about ancient Greece, right? Because Greece is.
What do they speak in Greece? Greek?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Greek. Yeah, I've had my Greek alphabet list open on my laptop because I have to translate all these Greek words in one of the books I'm reading.
Interesting. So anyway, if you have any feedback on any of those places, I'd love to hear it. Or if you live in one of them, or, let me know where you think is cool. Because I don't know when I'll get over there again. So I'm just going to take the extra few days and sort of take my time getting back home. So what do you got? What have you been up to? We had a block party here yesterday. Some guy almost choked to death. He got the Heimlich maneuver. Yeah, it was crazy.
No. What did he choke on?
I don't know. I was kind of not paying attention until it was in the thick of it.
Wow.
And then by then, everyone was...
Is that why I heard the ambulance last night, maybe?
I don't think so. I don't think there's an ambulance. The block party was pretty lit, though. There's a DJ and some fire dancers.
Wow, what? Really?
That was crazy. I was pretty impressed.
I heard fireworks coming from over there.
There was fireworks at the beach because it was Lake Fest yesterday, too. We went down to the Lake Fest. The wind blew all the tents over. It was pretty interesting. But we went down, had a good time. Bought some earrings from a communist, which is weird.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really? Did they?
I think they were a communist. They had a bunch of Karl Marx books for sale.
Wow.
And some earrings. But Madison liked the earrings, so I bought her some earrings. And went and ate at the food trucks, and our local politician was there.
Oh, really?
I just kept my distance. It didn't seem like the time or the place to start talking about lockdowns, but I would like to have a chat with her about that at some point, but not when there's a bunch of kids around. But no, it was a good day until the choking part. And then we just kind of left after that anyway, because it was 11. I mean, the kids were having a ton of fun dancing and doing cartwheels. There's kids everywhere. But by then, everyone's starting to get a little drunk and just, getting a little rowdy.
Wow.
But not rowdy, but, rowdy enough that I was like, okay, it's time to mail it in. I will say I live in a pretty good-looking neighborhood. There's a lot of good-looking people out there. I would say compared to, just average, the average workplace or going into, say, a grocery store or a pub, I was like, wow. I was like, just constantly... It's weird because everyone around me is pretty ugly. So they must live on the far end of the neighborhood.
Oh my God, dude. What's with your being very judgmental here?
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know if it is. I mean, some people are ugly. That's not being judgmental.
I don't know. I just don't think I think of my neighborhood in those terms. Whether
you don't?
Good looking or not.
You do. You just don't want to talk about it.
I'll work on that shadow side of myself.
You've been complaining. You were just complaining about your neighborhood for 10 minutes before we started recording.
Yeah, that's a completely different aspect.
I mean, I don't hate them because they're ugly. I'm just saying. It's not even that. It's just a lot of old people, I guess. Around my side of the neighborhood, seems like everyone's 50s and 60s. Whereas a bunch of young hip people must have come over from the other side of the neighborhood. I must be living on the wrong side of the neighborhood. If I was over there, seems like all the kids around me are a little older too. Like my kids haven't met any of the kids they met last night. All the kids that are their age. All the kids around here, like in the houses all around mine, I'd say like, I mean, some of them are just starting to drive, it seems like, or they're right on that cusp of driving. I'd say like 15 to 17 age. Because this neighborhood was built in like 2003, so it makes sense, right? If you moved in here starting a young family then, and you're still here, your kids are about that age.
Yeah.
Whereas it seems like the far side over there somewhere, because there's only like 100 houses or less in this little neighborhood, maybe 50. Anyway, a bunch of young kids came from somewhere. Like, I couldn't believe it. There was probably 50 fucking kids running around over there yesterday.
They're probably from my area, from my backyard.
You're only allowed in here if you live in my close.
Oh, wow.
So it's like from those, like where you turn right off of that one road here, just these houses in here.
Wow. Huh.
I couldn't believe the turnout, dude. It was crazy. It was out. There was easily 100 people there.
That's cool.
Having dance contests. And it was super like, you know, I mean, I, to be honest, I just kind of hung out in the corner and chatted with the people I know. I'm not planning on sticking around here, and I don't really want to get to know anyone. You know, but it's nice to see that the community, I guess the point is this ain't my community, and I've decided that. I'm leaving here, you know, in the near future. I'm looking for a place. But it's nice to see, if I wasn't, you know, it seems like this is a great spot. I like to see that the community is sort of coming together and getting to know each other.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super important right now.
Yeah, exactly. So it was nice to see. It was like a big potluck thing.
Yeah,
I had dinner. Then the dude almost choked, but I think he's okay. That was my cute exit.
Well, I did my homework from last week. I found the spot where the guy that developed the pendant that I'm wearing, the amulet that I'm wearing.
You got the book?
Well, no, I didn't get the book, but I just found in the blog where it says that he got his thing. But I also have from our chats a UFO experience to read to you from Paul Savage, 33. So I'll start with the homework that I finished. So this is back to that thepromiserevealed.net about me, and it's talking about Fred Bell, the guy who made these amulets. Anyways,
we don't know a lot about.
Well, there's a whole bunch on the line. I'm just not going to spend an hour reading it.
But have you read at least most of it before you're wearing his pendant and bringing his energy into your life?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like a defensive answer, I feel like. It's like my ex-wife. It's fine.
I don't need to explain myself to you. I'm fine with it.
Because I was wearing that one crystal that somebody sent us, and I stopped because I was just like, yeah, I don't really know anything about this.
Well, you could cleanse it first. I mean,
can you? Is that all it takes?
Yeah. Well, with a basic crystal. I mean, I'm not sure about a crazy shaped.
I don't know which one it was. Somebody sent it.
Materials, but if it's just a crystal, yeah, it's pretty easy to cleanse.
Man, it doesn't matter what it is anymore, even if it's like some weird like bad luck crystal.
Yeah, you've cleansed it. Yeah,
so you can just turn any crystal into whatever you want if you cleanse it.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
I'm not sure this is accurate. I thought different crystals did different things.
They do, but you can't cleanse them all, but most of them you can.
And change what they do.
I'm just saying from what I've learned. I'm not saying I necessarily fully buy into all that, but from what I've learned in the myths around crystals.
All right, well, let's hear about this crystal you're wearing, or amulet, or whatever it is.
Well, this guy's talking about Don Juan and the basics of quantum physics and stuff, but then he started experimenting. He met this pyramid man, and now dude, I'm trying to think back. In the 90s, in an aerospace company, in a test cell of testing engines, I met a guy who was into pyramids.
Weren't you into? I swear you were in a. I swear I've heard this story before.
Maybe, but it was just the weirdest thing because he had these like gold-plated pyramids and stuff, and I was like, "This guy's so cool." Because we talked about all kinds of stuff probably at the time, and this would have been in the '90s, so it would have been like UFOs and secret breakaway civilizations and stuff, and pyramid power. And he used to put he'd have these gold-plated pyramids, and he'd put his shaver in there and put like I think food and fruit and stuff. So this guy says he was near Laguna Beach. And he says, while living in Laguna Beach, I was exposed to many. So the other thing is this guy's from California, this pyramid guy that I met. So I thought, I wonder if this guy like knew about this pyramid man. So he says, while living in Laguna Beach, I was exposed to many spiritual influences as Laguna was a hub of spiritual consciousness. It was around this time at the age of 16, I was very interested in psychic phenomena and the development of the cities and the powers of the mind. I developed a sort of obsession with pyramids in high school and was talking to a girl at school who, upon hearing my interest, proclaimed, "I know the Pyramid Man." This is Fred Bell's front page image of the National Examiner article. He is holding his scale model of the X1 healing machine and the design of a time machine spaceship utilizing the interstellar conversion process. I thought Pyramid Man, really? I had to meet him. And my first meeting was days later when I knocked on the door of Fred Bell. I was literally carrying, he was literally carrying in his first run of 50 gold-plated pyramids. I wish I knew what year this was, which would later he would share with the entire world. I spent many hours and days of my life in close association with Fred Bell, who was my friend, teacher, and benefactor and spiritual guide. And then there's another painting on this blog here. It says the Seven Sisters painting represents the seven visible stars visible by the naked eye from Earth of the Pleiades, obviously. We developed many healing techniques utilizing pyramids, crystals, and lasers. We also worked on developing the Promise nuclear reactor and the Promise Andromedan holographic projector. The receptor device was given to Fred directly from Syringes, a female Palladian cosmonaut who is now a little over than 400 years old. The history of our association is long and varied, and much must wait for a more in-depth recounting. But for now, let me say he opened many doors for me and was a light on the inner and outward path towards knowledge and truth, love, and the secrets of the universe. He goes on to talk about like a picture of a major portal vortex that they created in Fred's living room, which looks pretty interesting. They talk about using laser light, crystal, sound, color technology in conjunction with pyramids. Dude, I met once a guy.
You think it was Fred?
He was programming crystals for NASA. Like literally with lasers. They were fucking programming information with lasers into crystals.
You said
for the
NASA,
space
right?
Organization.
Wow. You said NASA, right?
Did I?
It only took 9 years. Do you think you met Fred Bell?
No.
No chance.
Oh.
Do you think he's a pyramid guy?
Oh, maybe. No, I don't think so.
No? That'd be too much.
I'll look up pictures from him because I would probably remember what this older. I think he was an older guy with a beard, kind of like a Randall Carlson-ish guy.
Hello,
They used to work on engines for helicopters.
Hello, there.
Anyways, so he says that we amplified and accelerated these fields with violet flame Tesla coils to achieve our own artificial time warp zones. These vortices were actually accelerated with the Promised Pyramid Systems technology, which is the scalar field event horizons with focused intent. So it gets pretty crazy. I think I'll stop there.
Good call. Hey, did you get your bow dialed in then? So is it like using the peeps? You're using the peep site now?
Promised Pyramid Systems in action at Mount Shasta summer conference in 2014.
Oh, we missed it.
Anyways, yeah, I got the book. Well, to be honest with you, I figured out. I got it dialed in.
So you're using the peep site and stuff?
Well,
are you using your sites? If you're not using your sites, it's not dialed in. This is super important.
I am, but okay. I can't do it with both eyes. I need a patch.
We're going to get you a patch. Ooh, I bet you a listener could make you a patch and send it in.
Sure. Patch for the
Graham
left eye.
needs
It's a left
eye patch so that he could shoot his bow properly.
So figured out my dominant eye is my right eye. It was super interesting, these exercises she gave me to do to figure out which eye was dominant.
Where did you go?
Figured to Jimbo's.
Jimbo's?
So she figures out that I'm right eye dominant, but I can't close my left eye. So I can't, and I could, it's super hard for me. First of all, it's very hard for me to line it up properly because of my stature.
Your short stature?
Maybe,
or your arms are too short?
And well, this arm doesn't have proper range of motion either, maybe. So it's really, but she seemed to think it was normal. I mean, I just couldn't really get in there properly. I had to get right up there. And then it's almost like that magic eye picture where it came through and it worked.
Yeah, you just got to shoot a lot of short, even 5 yards, and just get in the habit of that, and you'll be great.
Of finding that sight there. Right?
And then you just like, dude, I can tell by where the strings were touching my lip because my lip is usually on the string, and and all that seemed crazy when I first started shooting. I was like, I don't want my lip on this fucking string that's going to go flying that way, but I do. Now it's there all the time. Like I have a certain spot behind my ear where my knuckle slides into, and you just start to feel your anchor. That's your anchor. So you just start to feel exactly where that's sitting. And then once that's in the same place every time, it'll start to feel really intuitive. And it'll just be natural.
It's hard to believe how uptight it's hard to believe how tight the thing has to be into you.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Right,
it's counterintuitive that string is so close to your face and stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, I haven't hit my arm in months, so I think I got my
hit your arm with what?
With the string. When I first started, I was always hitting my forearm with the string on the release because I had this arm too straight. So now
even on the compound, really?
Yeah. Now I don't do that. Now I'm getting like 1/4-inch groupings at 10 yards. So I'm going to switch to broadheads now for the next couple of weeks. I'm going to go shoot actual broadheads.
Why do those fly quite a bit differently here?
They're not supposed to, but I'm going to go dial in with those.
Especially if it's windy, it probably...
With the wind's going to make a huge difference. I want to get a good hang of how the broadheads are shooting. Because we're 2 weeks away. My antelope decoy comes in this week, Thursday.
What is that?
It's just like a fake antelope that you put up and hide behind. The reason I'm starting with antelope is because although they are the smallest of the game creatures and they are in the prairies, it seems like they'd be the hardest to hunt with a bow. I mean, some of my antelope I've shot at I think my longest was 356 yards. So like 3.5 football fields. And you were there for that, I think.
No, I've never seen
No, that was Miles. That was Miles. And Reverend, shout out to Reverend, was there as well. And my other buddy. So, but they're going to be in the rut pretty soon. And when they're rutting, they're like super combative and stuff like that. So, they're very apt to come over to the decoy. They'll come right over. You
hide behind a tiny decoy? Like, how big is this decoy?
It's not very big. I'm not going to hide behind the decoy. I'm going to get like some sort of a blind and like do it that way. So I'll be in a blind off beside the decoy.
Okay,
and I'll shoot it out of the decoy or shoot it from the blind. But it'll come right up to the decoy. So I expect to be able to get it within, 10 or 15 yards. Whereas, other stuff was probably going to be more like 30 or 40 yards. I'm going to try and get into elk this year, but I don't know if I'll be successful or not. I'm hoping to. I'm going to try to. I'm going to spend a lot of time in the woods.
Are you going to do the
I'm going to try and call them in.
Army-based thing again? Or?
Not with the bow. I'm going to do that again, but not with the bow. I'm going to go in the mountains with the bow for a few days on end with my buddy.
Yeah.
Do a proper hunt. But yeah, I'm ready to start all that. So we go shooting tomorrow if you want.
Yeah, maybe.
See how good you are. Now that you have that sight, you should be able to start at least staying on target and stop losing arrows.
Well,
There's nothing worse than losing arrows.
I wanted to use the void, and that's it. It's my intuition.
What?
I'm just kidding.
Nobody's using the fucking void, dude. Not even the Indians were using the void back in the day. They were still fucking aiming. They
So
were
this
just
is Paul
doing
Savage.
it all the time.
I don't want to forget about this. This is his sighting, and it's from our ufology channel in our chats. He saw a cigar-shaped craft yesterday. This would be like, only like Thursday, I think, last Thursday. About 5:45 on his way to a small country fair. He's riding shotgun in a flatbed low truck with Dad hauling a truck for the truck pull, and they noticed what they thought was an airplane. They weren't far from the Ottawa International Airport. On the old back roads with rows of Monsanto corn and soy. And they see the planes lowering for landing. So they can see these things. They're close enough, and you can see maybe 2 or 3 in a 20-minute span. About 10 minutes from their destination, they noticed one more, but this was different. At first, it looked like a plane. It was cigar-shaped, but didn't notice airplane wings like he did with the others. And this was a darker gray, whereas the others, you could see the colors and distinguish, Air Canada, WestJet, etc. What really caught his attention was it was matching our speed. It wasn't descending. It was staying in the sky as we're traveling straight down a road about 70 kilometers an hour. I watched this for like 3+ minutes. I noticed the craft not moving from its location from the sky over the few minutes pass. I occasionally look at the clock on the truck radio. Then just try some basic CE5 techniques and try to connect with the craft and ask in my head if this is a legit contact to give me a sign. A few more minutes pass as I do this meditation, and I go to check the time and see how long I've been now watching, and the clock reads 5:55. It's a strange synchronicity, and was wondering if that was my sign. I go to look at the craft and do the meditation, again, and after maybe 2 minutes, I look back at the clock and then back at the sky. Now it's completely gone, nowhere to be found. I take a moment to thank them for the contacts. And even though I'm still not sure what I saw or if I believe it, strange encounter, not too sure what to make of it, or the synchronicity, definitely intriguing. Last night on the drive home after the truck pull was over, we left for another sign. He took second place in the truck pull. Congrats. We left the fair. I asked for another sign before I was going to share this. So this morning when I got up, doing my morning routine and scrolling, and I happened to see a couple of videos in my recommendation about video cameras matching RPM of different tools and machines, and gives the appearance of standing still. Another strange synchronicity, since that describes my scenario perfectly before, because it was like we were matching speeds. Now I'm, like most people, skeptical. So just to clarify, after seeing the craft, I never Googled or searched about matching speed or cigar crafts. Everything was done by meditation. So seeing these videos without manipulating the algorithm is definitely a strange synchronicity. So that's why I thought I'd share this experience, because at first when I was watching, all the questions came to mind. Why the contact? Am I supposed to share this with others? Am I just feeding them energy? And by sharing it, making it more powerful, what was their intentions? As an empath, I've asked multiple beings from different realms, and you usually never do get a clear answer. But when you do know and feel it strongly, this one I'm not sure it was just casual, hey, a great full moon, or was it we need someone who will share their experiences and make others question reality sometimes. Sometimes it feels like the universe uses us for its own agenda. I guess that's why we question reality so much.
There you have it.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. Love you, buddy. Let us know when you're in Alberta.
Yeah.
It's the profound quote of the week. Darren, can you guess it? It's the profound quote of the week. Can you guess the human who spoke it or wrote it down?
Okay, this is two from the same author.
I could probably just look at the books you've been reading lately.
When the law no longer protects you from the corrupt, but protects the corrupt from you, you know your nation is doomed. That's the first one. The second one, when you see that in order to produce, you need to obtain permission from men who produce nothing, when you see that money is flowing to those who deal not in goods but in favors, when you see that men get richer by graft and by pull than by work, and your laws don't protect you against them, but protect them against you, when you see corruption being rewarded and honesty becoming a self-sacrifice, you may know that your society is doomed.
That's going to be... Fuck, what's his name? I got it.
Him.
What?
Not him.
Blavatsky.
No.
Annie Besant?
No.
The crazy lady that did the seances with Podesta?
No. What?
I don't know. I give up. I thought it was going to be the Fate of Man guy.
One of your favorite authors.
One of my favorite authors?
Yeah, this is for you. Directly for you.
I don't know.
Here, let me read this part again.
All right.
When you see that in order to produce, you need to obtain permission from that. Yeah, there we go.
I don't know. You know, I missed it. I should have had that.
Cool. I know. It's okay.
I was looking for a jingle. Well, actually, I was checking to see if there was enough content to play the jingle. So this is a problem. There's only two of us here. We're trying to do the show on the fly. Ayn Rand. Have you read any Ayn Rand?
Yeah,
Dave Matheson's head is exploding right now.
What's that?
Dave Matheson's head is exploding right now. Who is John Galt, buddy? Who is John Galt? You are.
I can't. Maybe I didn't listen to the whole thing.
Atlas Shrugged
really
is fucking long.
I listened to most of it.
Just John Galt's speech is 4.5 hours.
15, 20 years ago, yeah.
Just John Galt's speech is 4.5 hours.
Yeah.
I think the audiobook is 64 hours long.
Wow, yeah, that's my dad was my dad's favorite book. So
it's just fucking up there for mine for fiction. That one and her other one too about the architects. I forget what it's called.
I read the Fountainhead.
The Fountainhead's a little shorter with Rourke and all that, but Atlas Shrugged is definitely the better of the two books for sure. I'm almost done The Expanse. I'm almost done book 8. It took me a minute. I had to jump back into it and start it over a few times to get into it again because it did this fucking 30-year jump into the future thing, which is always tough. You know, it's always tough. Now it's all sort of changed up with the same characters. But anyway, I managed to force it through. You know, it was one of those ones where I had to really force through those first 3 chapters. And then, you know, I was right back into it. But I want to get it done. I need to get that one in the rearview mirror.
Cool.
Yeah, all right. So,
Mario?
What?
Mario? Oh, you got some social media?
Bingo, bango, social media jingle. Don't forget to rate, comment, and or subscribe to the Grind America.
So, we're going to go to the YouTube channel for this. And we got on Atlantis in the Azores with Randall Carlson from some Russian name I can't pronounce. At least I think it's Russian. I suppose Russian and Czech and Ukrainian all probably look pretty similar. I don't know. Do they use the same alphabet? There's crazy letters that don't look like letters to me anyway. I think there's a B and an E in there. Some of them look like the same letters. I think it's Russian. Hercules Gates was a problem for Greeks because Mediterraneus was getting water from Atlantic like waterfalls. They couldn't get... Okay, I'm going to skip this. The English is just too broken. We'll go to, on episode 560, Simon Shack and Patrick Holmquist from Simon Shack. This is just to thank you guys, Graham and Darren, for having us on your great show. I hope that Patrick and I managed to at least convey the basics of the Tychos model, and we are both very much looking forward to visually illustrating the model in the forthcoming video podcast. That is, as I understand, you're planning to record a few weeks from now, which is true. I think we got that booked for next Sunday or something like that.
A week from today, yeah. So the 21st at Noon Mountain probably is going to be the live... What?
Ooh, we're going to do a live stream. There you go. You get to see us on video again. It's been a long time, but we're going to do a video show for you guys. When we got on that same episode from Ninja Bricks. Great show, guys. Very hard to accept this info initially, but they have good points to back themselves up. The book online is hard to put down first because you're looking for cracks to dismiss it. But once I read it all, I dove in again in astonishment because it speaks for itself. I look forward to seeing the Tychosium in action with Simon and Patrick's explanations. From Amber Cintron, is one of our YouTube people that there's like, you can start to notice a set group of people that just consume the show on YouTube, even though it's an audio show. There's about 500 or 600 people that listen on YouTube. Well, mind blown. Cannot wait to see the slides on this. When you look up and you think this just ain't right and someone comes up with something that could be plausible or makes way more sense. Again, the music was fantastic at the end. I downloaded this whole album last Friday.
Oh my God.
Life-changing themes to what's been going on in my world. That, of course, is the Procession album.
Oh my God. I'm getting so much. I told Kyle this. I'm getting so much feedback from people asking about the tunes and what tunes those are. People are loving the Procession, dude.
These motherfuckers are some of the most talented people on the planet. You need to check out the $50 Dynasty album. From Drone Dynasty, his brain couldn't comprehend gender neutral and there are no male or female toilets. So why have two separate toilets? That would solve the problem if there was just one toilet. Anyway, from the last one I'll read today. Actually, I'm going to do one more after this. From Based Taz. Very interesting indeed. This needs to be falsified immediately if it is wrong. It should be extremely easy for any standard astronomer to be debunk. Have any mainstream guys addressed this? It's simply impossible for us laymen to figure out. We would need a long-form debate with both sides checking their models against observation. These guys definitely sound confident and the model is great. I'd avoid the magnetic/electric versus gravitational aspect. It shouldn't matter, right? The paths of the bodies either match observation or they don't.
Exactly.
Again, I'm a layman. That may be wrong. Fantastic interview. And the last one I'll go to today is again on Atlantis in the Azores with Randall Carlson. I was born in the Azores. You have got to visit. Acheroreses is 15 million years old, and I have seen the strangest thing in Azores. Animals that shouldn't exist. Strange paranormal creatures. You name it, Azores has got it. Go visit. A must for you.
Yeah.
So there you have it. Grimerica.ca/support, guys. If you're getting some value from our little podcast over here, if you're enjoying our 561 episodes that we've given you for free, they're all still there in the back catalog for free for you to share with your friends or do whatever you like with. Listen to them over and over. We don't care. But if you do get some value from those 561 shows, head over to grimerica.ca/support today. Maybe you're listening to the 100 free Outlawed shows we've done too, and you can add those to the pile, make it 660 episodes for free. If you're listening to the free shows. If you're a member over on Outlawed, then it's a different story. That probably counts for both. We love you for that. But if you're not, grimerica.ca/support. Sign up for a monthly today. Make a one-time donation. Let us know that our little show here is valuable still, that you're still getting some value from our efforts and that you're receiving it. grimerica.ca/support. That's the way you let us know that you love what we're doing. grimerica.ca/chats. If you want to join our little chat room there, that's got 400 or 500 people in it that are pretty cool. We don't do any censorship or anything like that. We don't give a fuck. It can get a little crazy. I'm going to warn you. You might get triggered, but we don't give a fuck. What else? We got the audiobooks over at adultbrain.ca. You can check out all those. Graham's been hard at work trying to update that website. We have all the events with Randall Carlson coming up here in just like 6 weeks. We got the Scablands. There's still some space left for both those weeks. Very limited, but there's a few spaces left. Contact at thecabin.com for that. And I think that's about it. Of course, if you head over to grimerica.ca, you can get links for my books and everything else that's over there. The chats, the support, you name it. So I think that's about it. You got anything else? You got our bio?
Yeah, I got Mario. I kind of went through his website here, just took a bit out of his bio. I'm not reading the whole thing here, but he is a successful former business person and a graduate engineer. He says engineers are not handicapped with all sorts of limited ideas and paradigms that archaeologists and geologists are hindered with. He discovered that the orientation of foundations of ancient structures around the world follow a pattern, an overwhelming mathematical pattern, one that has become the subject matter of this website. So he's always been interested in ancient humans, megalithic structures, ancient temples, and pyramids. As a child, he was always wondering why ancient Homo sapiens had the same brains and hands as we, wandered around empty plains for hundreds of thousands of years. They were effectively doing nothing with their creative brains and hands, building nothing, leaving no traces other than split stones and some primitive tools. I discovered that this idea of primitive humans in the ancient past that has been imposed on us for centuries is not true. I'm supported by dedicated and highly skilled teams of alphas and betas, and they go on to that. Recently, it appears the most of the orientational grids in countries around the world are based on much older grids. These grids appear to point to the same ancient geographic poles. Together, we are a team of independent researchers that have deeply penetrated into the unbelievable truth behind lost civilizations. Because the research is holistic and mathematical, it inevitably covers several scientific disciplines. There are no shareholders involved, nor has this anything to do with ego issues. Our team is growing with enthusiastic, highly skilled, and motivated researchers and editors. Our research is expanding rapidly while amazing many mainstream scientists with our simple mathematics-based research. So he says our recent discoveries done entirely outside the conventional scientific community reveal astounding insights into the reasons for geographic polar movements and their undeniable close association with ancient cultures. Our ancient history, including a vast amount of ancient structures, goes back literally hundreds of thousands of years. That's not just an idle statement because a large amount of data and mathematical certainties support it. It appears that the dating work that has been done by archaeologists, scholars, and historians over many decades has revealed next to nothing about the real antiquity of human history. So the interesting part is too, some of that goes kind of contrary to some of Randall's work as well. I don't think he puts as much strength in the impact hypothesis. I think he would say that there's some other interesting parts that he agrees with Randall's work, but I don't think he thinks impacts have such a huge catastrophic impact on civilization as a whole. Or the global civilization as a whole over the hundreds of thousands of years or millions of years even.
Interesting chat. It was one of the better ones we've done lately, in my opinion. I was captivated, and I hope you are too. Enjoy the chat with Mario.
Mario Buildreps, thanks for joining us in Grimerica. This is going to be an exciting chat.
Yeah, you're welcome, Graham. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Oh, big shout out to Amish Inquisition. I think they're the ones that hooked us up. They're like, yeah, you got to talk to Mario. And then I started looking up your work, and I thought, man, this fits in with. Well, it's still challenging for us, but it fits in with a lot of different things we've talked about. I mean, we've had, Randall Carlson on many times about the Younger Dryas and the megafauna and all that stuff. And then we've had Neil Adams on about the expanding Earth way back, like maybe 7 years ago. And that's always been one of our favorite theories. We've talked about the electric universe type stuff. So I feel like your research and your team is doing this amazing work, and it's kind of putting it all together.
Yeah, sure. And it's a very abstract work. Most people are into more, let's say, not intuitive, but more feeling work. It feels good, and but this mathematical work is more difficult to grasp. and it's purely abstract because history is mostly about kings and queens and rulers, and this goes back and back and back, and then you have tens or hundreds of kings and queens, and you can go back a few thousand years, and then that's it. You cannot write history over 400, 500,000 years with only kings and queens and rulers, because this list is too long and nobody can comprehend this. So this is ancient history is abstract, because what do we know about humanity 100,000 years ago? We don't know virtually nothing about them.
So you've got a technical background, engineering, that kind of thing. How did you get interested in all this type of stuff? How long? It was
my let's say, how do I call this? My interest. I have a technical background. I'm a graduated engineer, and so I'm mathematically trained. But my interest was mainly, when I was young, into ancient history and humanity and megaliths and ice ages and all this fantastic stuff. But because making a career in this, I was practical. So making a career in this is too difficult. So being technical, you can easily earn money on this. So I did this. But then suddenly my life started to change. Some people are lucky in their life to have abrupt changes, like a divorce. Don't want to say I'm lucky to having a divorce, but this
I could say
sometimes
that.
Transform. What then?
I might say that.
Yeah. Okay. Sometimes you can be lucky.
Sometimes you don't notice you're lucky for a little while after.
Yeah. Exactly. So I had a difficult period because I lost my contact with my children for a while, and this was very difficult. So, and in this typical periods, you start to go back to your youth. What is the meaning of life and all that kind of stuff, And then I just started to read again in books of ancient humanity, and I stumbled upon the work of, I lost his name, about the Crust shifts of Charles Hapgood. And I started reading this, and slowly I started to delve into this topic of the crust shift, and I thought, wow, that's interesting. Maybe it can be true, because Albert Einstein also wrote something about this, and Albert Einstein, of course, he said, it has to be proven yet, and this is true, of course, because it's still a theory, and Albert Einstein was more a mathematical guy, and so I thought, maybe there's something to it, but if Charles Hapgood is right, and it could also be that some ancient megalithic structures could be pointing to the poles of Charles Hapgood. So I started to look at this, just curious. And the first place to look at this kind of things is in Google Earth, because Google Earth is fantastic for this sort of things.
So is the crustal shift the same as Earth crust displacement?
No, because Charles Hapgood, this is a good question. Charles Hapgood believed that the crust, like a sort of orange juice, like
the skin of an orange.
The skin of an orange could just shift in its totality, and this force that caused this, according to Charles Hapgood, was the ice formation on the poles. So when this ice formation starts to be eccentric and large enough, then it pushes the whole. And this is a good idea. Of course,
Pushes,
can
or
be
does it
true,
get like pulled by gravity? Because you could see where the poles would get more mass, and then they would want to pull into the sun just naturally.
not by gravity, by eccentric force. So, like when you have a bucket, you put a rope on this bucket and you put water in it, and you start to wave around. The water stays in the bucket if you turn it fast enough. And this is not gravity; this is centrifugal force.
Yeah, yeah.
And this force, according to Hapgood, was the cause of the crust to shift in its totality. But of course, when you start to look deeper into geology and read a lot, you start to find a lot of troubles with this theory of Charles Hapgood. And these troubles with his theories are so big that it's just impossible for this theory to be true. But still, nevertheless, it's a good idea to start with. So, okay, I thought, Charles Hapgood. Yeah, if Charles is right, then it might be ancient cultures, because humanity is already for 300,000 years on Earth. There could be some traces pointing to these old poles, because Hapgood mainly looked at coral reef formations that died off due to changes in sea levels and changes in ice formations and so on and so on. And he did a thorough job. And but these conclusions of him to be just then jump to crustal shift was a little too large jump. So again, back to this. If you have questions, by the way, just you can interrupt me. It's no problem.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I do want to just finish off that Earth crust displacement. So what's that then? And the difference to that then, is that just the sort of expanding Earth pushing the crust out, and eventually it gives way or it lets go and displaces? Or how would you compare that to like what Hapgood said versus the crustal shift?
Yeah, it's good to go back to this. Charles Hapgood's work was at the beginning of geology, finding or mapping the ocean floor on isochronic patterns. And perhaps listeners don't know what isochronic patterns are, but these are, let's say, in simple terms, magnetic reversals. And magnetic reversals leaves traces in molten stone that contains iron particles. So these particles change direction when the magnetic field reverses. And this is quite a large work that geology did with all kind of oceanic vessels, drilling in the ocean floor and so on. It's madly a lot of work. And so they started to have a map of the ocean floor of the Pacific, the Atlantic, and Mediterranean. So at the same time, Hapgood's work was written, and because Hapgood's work was pushed away by this geology making these isochronic maps. So it was pushed to the corners of pseudoscience. Let's call it like this. But Hapgood thought that due to this ice formation around the poles becoming more and more eccentric, the Earth starts to wobble, and then the whole crust starts to shift, becomes loose from the crust, the rigid crust becomes disattached from the magma layer that's deeper within the Earth. It sounds plausible on the first, and you think intuitively, this could be right, this could be true. and but it has too much problems with settled science. I want to say science is never settled, but some parts of science are pretty well settled. So, for example, isochrons on the ocean floor is pretty good settled science. And then you can start to debate about what caused exactly this pattern, but that's another discussion. But the work itself is good work, and so you have to deal with this somehow. And Hapgood's theory could not deal with this map, and that is why this work is a good start. But it has to be continued by better rigid. No, not rigid. How do you say this in English? Solid science. It has to be backed by more research. Yeah.
So, what about the Earth crust displacement then?
I call
is
it.
that more as your? What is your theory, or what do you call that?
I call it Earth crust deformation.
Oh, right.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's different in the regard that's kind of more of your theory and what sort of you've evolved to think of.
Yeah, exactly.
Theory, right?
And it has let's say. I call this I have a Dutch word for this, but it has attachments to geology. It has attachments to Neil Adams' work. So when you are doing science, you have to incorporate as much as possible. And when you exclude something, you have to be very well aware of what you're excluding and why you're excluding it, because some people exclude something because it doesn't fit their belief system. So, all right.
Well, that's what's happening in science right now. I mean, they just don't want to change the paradigm. They say that cannot be true because it doesn't fit our current paradigm, instead of taking that evidence into account.
And science has become a little bit belief system, and this has a good reason, especially geology. When you want to become a geologist, you have to learn this Jurassic, Trias, all these names, all these subdivisions, all these billions years ago. And the problem that I have with this kind of science is that it appears as if this science is settled. You cannot change this. When you want to become a geologist, you have to learn this. This is the fact. And this is a problem because it seems as if this is not fluid. It is calcified, this map. And when you calcify something, you're not doing science. Everything you're doing has to be fluid as long as possible. And when you're very, very sure about something, then you can try to calcify parts of it. And I want to say something else that's very interesting, because we think that the speed of light, for example, is settled science, and that nothing can travel faster than the speed of light. And this has been for over 100 years, the scientific rigor. This is the case. And now it appears that new mathematical scientific theories prove that the speed of light is just a part of the space-time paradigm. And this paradigm is just a tiny part of the whole. And so within this little cube, let's say this, in this little space of our space and time, let's say our headset, the game we are in. Yeah? Let's say you are in a game and you put on a headset and you start to believe in this game that it is real. And you are losing yourself in this game. So we are lost in this, let's say, space-time idea that we cannot travel faster than light. And this is just a part of science that was true, a little part, but it seems to be bigger. So speed of light is just a small part of the total physics of our universe. And so to say, no, Mr. Buildreps, you're not right, because it is settled science, I do not agree with it. I do not agree with this. Science is never settled. And the same counts for Mr. Buildreps. When Mr. Buildreps says, my science is settled, you have to doubt this guy, because I keep all my work as fluid as possible. And when I discover new things, I have to incorporate this in my theory. And when it doesn't fit, I have to have a very good reason why this doesn't fit, and a very good explanation for this.
Have you got an elevator pitch or a summary of your theory of where it's at right now in this evolved sort of fluid state, like where you're at right now? Like, have you got a way to kind of describe that in a paragraph kind of thing?
Yeah. It's a good one. The work is now, let's say, mathematically sure about 5 poles, 5 geographic north poles, and a pretty steady south pole. So the North Pole migrates, and this is based on the orientation of foundations of ancient structures. And this is mathematically rigorous. And this pattern fits on the isotopics found in the ice sheet on Antarctica. So let's say we have had ice ages. Science now says we have had ice ages, and we know this for sure because we find this pattern on the South Pole in the ice sheet on Antarctica. And so the Earth went in a warm period, in a cold period, and a warm period, and a cold period, and so on. And these temperature rises and falls are sometimes 15 degrees, 20 degrees, sometimes 25 degrees, and this is globally. And this is, of course, an insane amount because we start to be hysterical when the global temperatures of the Earth starts to rise about 1 degree or 2 degrees. So,
yeah.
So what the hell happened in the ancient past with this so-called ice ages, glaciation cycle?
So that's sort of the start of your theory. But now you've also evolved it to the time frame of a lot of our stuff is off, right? Like the carbon dating, the dinosaurs, like all this stuff, right?
Yeah. Carbon dating is okay. Let's say okay. It's not scientific. Let's say bulletproof. Because why is this? Carbon dating can go back until about 60,000 years ago, and then it points your mass spectrometer will say 0, so we have no age. So let's say when you find something that contains organic material, and it is, we know for sure it is 100,000 years old. The carbon-14 says we don't know, 0. So we cannot date this. And this is the trouble, of course, with archaeology dating megalithic structures. They find organic material around this megalithic structure in the soil. And so they date this and they say, okay, we can correlate this with a megalithic structure. And we say this is built 5,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago. But of course, you cannot connect these two things together. But I want to go back to my theory, these 5 poles, these 5 geographic north poles. And these 5 poles have a pattern. So there's a distance between the 5 poles. And when I found these poles, I start to ask myself the question, how old can these poles be? and I have to look for patterns. And I found a correlating pattern with the glaciation cycles found on Antarctica. And these two patterns, these independent patterns, fit on each other. And when these two patterns fit, I can say with a probability that they are correlating. So what archaeology does with carbon-14 to a megalithic structure, you cannot do this one-on-one. But when I find two independent patterns that correlate, I can connect these two with probability. And this is almost 100%.
So are those red dots? Are those red dots on that map behind you? Are those 5 poles then? So it's not like the 5 poles are spread out all around the circumference of the globe. They're just sort of teetering back and forth. Is that what's happening?
Yeah. You see these 5 poles, and what is also on top of the pattern, the matching pattern with the glaciation graph that I found, is that the size of the red dot grows when it becomes older. And this is also something intuitively logic, because the more deformation the crust had, the more spread this mathematical clustering becomes. And this can be difficult for people to grasp. I understand.
Yeah. Let's mention how, because I don't think we really talked about how you think the poles have shifted, right? So what you're saying is the Earth has been expanding, and the crust displaces or dislodges, which then would reorient all the new sites that are being built to a new pole kind of thing.
Exactly. The Earth expands, and then I'm. Of course, I have a certain amount of certainties in my theory, and then I tread uncertain terrain. Let's say.
Yeah, of course, and we can totally speculate here. Yeah.
The speculation is how exactly does this migration of the geographic North Pole. How does this correlate to the expanding Earth?
Right. Yeah.
And this is I have speculation about this. I cannot prove this yet. The speculation is that the expanding Earth might be much younger than we initially thought. So Neil Adams thinks the expanding Earth is about 100 million years old. That's his take on it. And I say, no, this is impossible, because with the expanding Earth, you are using scientific data you take from the geology that assumes that the Earth has never expanded. So you're using the wrong data. And so this data set is sort of corrupted and used for his take on the expansion is perfectly well. It's okay. But his time frame, no, this is wrong.
What about where the material is coming from? I think he mentions pair production at the center of every sort of celestial body, I guess.
Yeah, it is probably I have seen some theories about there might be a nuclear reaction within the center of the Earth. I think this is pretty good theory, and this might explain some part of the expansion. And another part of the expansion, and this is of course difficult because you have two sources of expansion, and scientists don't like this when you have two things. We like to have one thing. So two things, and this is a material subparticles from the sun during coronal mass ejections. And the Earth has a large magnetosphere. The magnetosphere catches the subparticles from the sun during a CME and guides it to the South Pole. And that is why the Earth, expands from the South Pole. And so partly because of the nuclear reaction that produces subparticles, and partially from the sun that produces also subparticles, guided through the magnetosphere to the South Pole. And there are some pretty good theories about how subparticles in a magnetic field travel, because they do not travel randomly. They only travel in certain directions. And this direction is only to the plus.
Negative, yeah. Oh, the plus. Okay.
Plus, yeah, plus pole. Yeah. So the south pole is the plus pole, and we tend to think it's. I admit I can have it wrong, but because I can of course have things wrong when you change plus or minus. But okay, this is the take of my theory is that expansion is pretty young, not more than 1 million years old. So the Earth was, let's say, a rock, a small planet for over its entire age. Only the last few million years it expanded pretty rapidly.
Wow, and then will it become gas eventually?
Maybe, yeah. Maybe it expands further. Maybe it. No, I don't think it becomes gas, because gas would assume that the planet would be lighter, become lighter.
Yeah, but if the crust if everything keeps getting pushed out and expanding, it gets thinner and thinner, and the material kind of ends up being less and less. I mean, I think that was part of Neil Adams' theory as well. I think Neil kind of thought Neil thought that, we'd become a gas giant, the gas giant would become a sun. It kind of, each object evolves into eventually a star, I guess, in itself.
Oh, this could be true. Yeah, of course. Sounds good. I don't know this part of Neil Adams' theory, but it sounds pretty good that everything becomes a sun. Everything becomes enlightened, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. So there's also some ancient myths that talk about poles, like 7 poles, and they think that every 3,714 years, so 3,714 years, the pole would shift within a great year. So the great year had 7 segments of it, and there was 7 pole shifts. I mean, have you heard of that? Does it fit in with your pole theory?
No, because this would let's say we would live on a pretty dynamic Earth, and
we would know a little bit more about it every 3,000 years. Yeah,
for sure. So no, and I think this expansion is already started. People think, oh wow, we are already expanding. Yes, I think we are. There is little evidence that expansion already started a few hundred years ago, and that this might be when you look at the Ice Age graphs. Some people say, we are on the verge of a new Ice Age. And in my theory, it says a downward flank of the curve means expansion. And it means a shifting and migrating geographic North Pole. And so I think when you look at volcanic activity and seismic activity over the last few hundred years, you see an uptick of these two. And this is let's say, a sort of proxy of an Earth becoming more dynamic. And this more dynamic activity could mean expansion. And this expansion goes very slow. Very, very, very slow. Over hundreds, over thousands of years. Tens of thousands of years. So we have time for this.
What do you think triggered it? What do you think started it a few million years ago or a million years ago, whatever it was? Could be an impact from outside, or what triggers the Earth to suddenly start growing?
I think it's triggered by higher activity of the sun, and this activity of the sun. There are some cycles. There are slow cycles. There are more shorter cycles. And there are probably, but we don't know this yet, there are probably much longer cycles of the sun. And these cycles could cause this higher activity of the sun, causes more coronal mass ejections, and eventually expansion of the Earth. And it's very hard to notice we are expanding. When NASA measures if we are expanding, whether we are expanding, the answer is no, we're not expanding, no. Because we measured only 0.2 millimeters over a diameter of, let's say, 15,000 meters, kilometers. So there's no expansion according to NASA. But you have to look at this process for a much longer time. And this expansion is, let's say, there is a proxy for this expansion, and that is activity, seismic and volcanic activity. So we are not looking at drastic problems. We are looking at very slow disruption of the human culture. So over hundreds of years, over a few thousand years, our culture is completely disrupted by too much activity for our culture to thrive. So we will be facing crop losses and migration patterns and famine and this sort of things, and of course extinction of species.
Which way is it tipping next time? Because I'm like kind of up north. So is it going to tip so I'll be farther south, or am I going up into the cold?
The pattern says the Western hemisphere will move a little bit to the south.
Yes.
So
I'm good.
California will move to, let's say, the latitude of Mexico City, or perhaps even somewhat lower, become more in the tropical region. And Russia will move to the North Pole. So it become even colder.
Does anyone know this, do you think? Do you think this is something that, because I mean, when you look at something like this and you've got China building these crazy empty cities that are kind of, down a little farther south, that maybe they're thinking of bringing some of their northern populations there. You got Russia maybe moving down into Ukraine. You got...
Well, guys, you're talking about two things. You have to look at the ego aspect, let's say. So it's my lifetime, my life, my age, and what's happening for me in this lifetime. Nothing will happen.
Nothing, eh? But the Chinese have always been pretty good at thinking ahead. They seem to think ahead better than the rest of us.
Yeah, you have to think the long game, the long game. Yeah.
The only guy who is really thinking ahead at the moment is Elon Musk. He's looking for people to getting to Mars, and he's right. If humanity wants to survive, we have to get people to Mars.
Is there room for a contraction in your theory, speaking of Mars? Because do you think Mars there's all this evidence that Mars looks like maybe the Earth might have at one time. Is there a chance that it, or Mars got smaller again at the end of it? Or do you think that, do you have any time for that panspermia idea that we came from Mars, or do you think we're headed that way?
I have haven't looked at Mars well enough to say something meaningful about this, but I'm sure that Elon Musk is right what he's doing, and I think this is also what you see in ancient texts. You see this in some depictions of hieroglyphs in Egypt, that ancient cultures had some means of traveling to the stars, let's call it like this, to lift humanity off our inhabitable planet in order to survive for our species.
I've seen some evidence that maybe the Egyptians made the moon.
Yeah, perhaps. Don't know.
That would be maybe a good way to get away from this with a shit ton of people.
Yeah, you need only...
Because it must get catastrophic at some point, right? Like it happens slow, but at some point it hits some sort of, tipping point where the shit just starts hitting the fan fast, it seems like, right? Otherwise we just wouldn't notice.
Maybe, yeah. And no, I think really, I'm not a catastrophist, and there are in geology some streams of catastrophism, but also these guys thinking catastrophism over very, very long time frames. When you look at a human lifetime, let's say 100 years max, in 100 years nothing seriously happens.
What about like the Younger Dryas, though?
Yes, of course, there can something catastrophic happen, like a comet impacting, and these are events that took place all over the course of lifetime of the Earth.
Yeah, but you don't think that you don't think a cometary impact hypothesis is responsible for the Younger Dryas, though?
No.
So what about the Younger Dryas if you agree that there was one or two main floods and not like a whole bunch of little ones over a few thousand years?
No,
that's a pretty, like, increasing the sea level by 300 feet is pretty impactful, right?
No. I don't think the Younger Dryas is serious. I've seen this, and I maybe you don't like what my opinion about this, but I have also evidence for this. When you look at the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, you can date this comet impact with a certainty of only plus or minus 1 million years, period.
Yeah, not the impact, but just the flood itself, like the Younger Dryas without the impact, because they're two separate things, right? Like something caused like the huge ice sheets over Canada to melt pretty fast, right?
Yeah, this could be caused by the migration of the North Pole.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Because when you look at how these ice sheets were formed, they are not concentrically formed around our current North Pole. It was pretty eccentric, and they were formed around Greenland. So when you move this, let's say, you have to imagine that Greenland was moved over the North Pole over the course of 300, 400,000 years. It's a pretty long time frame. It goes slow in steps of moving, steadiness. And so this ice sheet forms around Greenland, and then Greenland moves again to its current position, and then you have an enormous ice sheet on the wrong place. And this immense ice sheet starts to melt pretty.
But that's catastrophic. Fast. I mean, that's catastrophic.
Catastrophic, yeah. Absolutely. And this is immense. So the sea level started to rise at approximately 120 meters. So that's, let's say, 400 feet.
Yeah, 400 feet, 350, 400 feet, yeah.
Terrible.
So, but that's catastrophic. But you're saying that still happens over such a long period that it won't affect
this was
a lifetime?
it needs. I think you need to think in longer time frames.
Yeah.
And not in catastrophic short time frames. And things can be, let's say, catastrophic because when you build a large city, large ports and airfields around shores, because most of humanity, current humanity, 60% lives along the shores.
Yeah.
Build mega cities, and so all these cities become flooded.
Yeah.
And they have to move. And move. So you cannot settle anymore. So all these structures that were built over a few centuries, because you need to settle, humanity needs to settle and grow and flourish. And then slowly this starts to be, let's say, desettled. And what do? Then you have to move. In the millions, with millions of people, you have to move.
Yeah.
And so they have to build again. But building again, you do not do this within a few years because you have no tools, you have no infrastructure, you lost everything.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, but I also want to put in context for people because your timelines differ from also sort of alternative theories and as well, even for the dinosaurs and for some of the stuff. Like I think, and correct me where I'm wrong, but I think that your theory encompasses ancient structures that are older than we think, and dinosaurs being around, closer than we thought as well. So absolutely. So everything's not, all the timelines aren't extended, but as far as catastrophe it is. But some of your other sort of theories bring everything, some things that seem closer together as well.
Yeah, you said it very well, because my theory says the geological time frame has to be shrunk.
Yeah.
And the archaeological time has to be stretched out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then you start to see a pattern. You think, that is interesting. Because humans could have walked with dinosaurs. Yeah. And you see this in depictions, and you see this in figurines. Yeah. So this makes sense. And there's in the rainforest in Brazil, I think, there's a miles long wall full of depictions of hunting figurines with large animals, not contemporary animals, much, much larger. So there is a lot of evidence of humans walking with large animals. And how you have to ask this question, how did science date a dinosaur? How do they date this? Dinosaurs are dated with geological timelines. And when geology is wrong with the expanding Earth, all these plates and all these patterns become mixed up when the Earth expands. And there you go. So your dinosaur bone in this typical layer could be much, much younger. It is not settled science. And a geologist will say, Mr. Buildreps, but you were wrong because I studied geology and I know this for sure. And I could ask a question, how do you know this for sure? Can you point me out to 100%, let's say, watertight paper or research that will say, I'm 100% sure that my geological timelines are correct.
Yeah, that's a paradigm they can't change. I mean, it's in the strata. It's been there for millions of years. But yet the megafauna we do also accept that the mammoth, the woolly mammoth, and I mean, you talked about this, why there isn't any large animals left. I mean, we accept that some of the megafauna were here only 12,000 years ago, but not the dinosaurs.
Yeah. So where did all these large animals go? Why don't we see this? There could be a very well explanation why the sable-toothed tiger, large predator, became extinct. This has perhaps not directly connected to expansion, maybe to some prey that was not anymore around. But when you look at the big picture, you see shrinking of life, and also large insects that were not as large as today, but they were about, let's say, 5 to 10 times larger.
Is that because the gravity's increasing as the planet grows, so those bigger forms aren't sustainable anymore?
Yeah. So there's a very clear evidence that expansion and gravity grows. And then you could debate, and this is an interesting debate, about what timelines are we talking about. And this must be the scientific debate. And I hope some institutes will start to adopt expansion and start to research seriously about what timelines are we talking about, and what does this mean for growing gravity? What does this mean for life on Earth? What does this mean for the mechanisms that causes this? What does this mean for the timelines of this expansion? What does it mean for the timeline of dinosaurs? Are we sure dinosaurs died by a comet impact 66 million years ago? How do you know this for sure? And all these kind of questions. Of course, there could be a comet impact that caused destruction everywhere. But it doesn't mean when you find one thing, you have solved it completely. This is sort of childish simplicity thinking. And I'm not very fond of this, because you have to keep it fluid, like I said in the beginning. You have to, most people don't like this, because I want to write a book about a theory, and I must be sure about this. But I cannot, I'm busy, of course, writing a book in Dutch, by the way. It has to be translated to English. But this book starts with observations and philosophical questions, and then slowly starts to move into the sphere of I see ancient foundations and newer buildings built on these old foundations, and these patterns that I see. What does this mean for the age of these cultures? Because I find this the most interesting question: the culture, the human culture, and a theory must be pushed to its limits. You must push your theory to the limits, and so I did this to the expanding Earth. But I come at a terrain that is not exactly my specialty, and so my theory is at the limit. So my book will start to be very fluid around the topic of the expansion, and what does it mean when I see figurines depicting a dinosaur, a human figure sitting on this dinosaur, when I see figurines of paintings, wall paintings with dinosaurs on it. What does this mean? What is pictures, wall paintings made millions of years ago, or were it made a few 100,000 years ago? And these are questions that I will ask in my book.
Well, let's bring your original research on the alignments and the poles into context with this whole thing then. So to explain that again, you did all these alignments of all these ancient buildings, and you can see alignments in modern cities too. You show a great YouTube video of like how all these streets, people naturally align themselves to the north, south, east, and west, so they can figure out where they're going and all that. So what you're saying is you've shown the alignments of maybe thousands of ancient sites. I don't want to speak out of turn, but and they all align to these 5 poles, which enabled you to sort of create a timeline for maybe when those were created, when the pole, depending on when the poles were there, right? So can you just explain that a little bit as far as your timeline goes too on the ancient cultures, and if there's any trends and how you kind of figured that out?
Yeah, that's a good one. It's about almost 1,200 ancient structures spread over the world. I don't have let's say this or this. No cherry picking, and it is not all structures aligning to the pole, because we don't see this today as well.
Yeah.
Not all, let's say, buildings in America are aligned to the cardinals, to northeast, southwest. But the majority, so about 60%, 65% of the ancient structures align to these 5 poles. And the let's say the areas of these 5 poles are so small compared to the amount of structures and where they are located. You can calculate probabilities, and the probabilities are jumping through the roof that these structures can go on these large or these small areas. And the probabilities are just insanely high. So it's just about people know about, if your listeners know about scientific numbers, it is 1 times 10 to the 18. It's a 1 with 18 zeros. Probability of 100%. I know 100% sure that pole 2 and pole 3 are real poles, real geographic poles, based on orientation of ancient structures in relation to the Ice Age graphs. And I know for sure they are this old originally. So when I go, for example, to Teotihuacan, or I go to Tikal, or I go to Chichen Itza, I see, a good example is Chichen Itza. Chichen Itza, for example, contains a collection of structures, and they are chaotically oriented. But when I start to examine them, they are oriented to the poles. And this is, of course, amazing, because it means that the chances that this can happen by luck are, let's say, a 0 and a point, and then you get about 6 or 7 zeros and then a 1. It's just 0.
And then how old do you figure that oldest part of that structure is at Chichen Itza then?
For example, the pyramid of Kukulkan, it is pointing to pole 4.
Okay, yeah.
And so that means it is between 240 and 270,000 years old, the original structure inside the pyramid. And the outside pyramid is made by later cultures.
Yeah.
So it looks like it's pointing at Greenland, right? So you think that was the old pole?
Yeah, to the southern tip of Greenland. Yeah. Can we share? Oh no, it's useless. It's podcast. Of course, we can share images.
Yeah, well, all I did is I went to Google Earth and typed in Chichen Itza, and then when you go to Chichen Itza, you can zoom in enough that you can barely. Let me see what I did here because I'm a little stoned. So I zoomed in on. What did I zoom in on? Where is it now? Okay, I zoomed in on the El Castillo pyramid.
El Castillo. Yeah.
And you can see it's like a cross. You can zoom in and you can see the stairs, but it's very much like a cross, showing 4 different directions. Yeah. So now I can just maintain like a line of where the 2 lines of the cross are going. And as I zoom out and follow that forward, it's going to take me, instead of to the North Pole, it's going to take me exactly where Mario said, right to that southern tip of Greenland.
Yeah.
Southern tip of Greenland is one of the poles, and when you ask yourself the question, okay, what does this mean for this specific example of El Castillo? How old is El Castillo? This is 80% between 270 and 240,000 years old. 80% sure. It's pretty good.
Wow. Yeah. And is that so? Are you noticing a trend then? So let's say stuff that's pointing to pole 4 has the similar architecture, maybe polygonal type blocks or pillowy type blocks. Like, have you noticed any trends with sites that are pointing to the same poles as far as style goes or anything like that?
No, there's no typical style. There were so many cultures around.
Wow.
And they built all sort of structures. For example, Baalbek in Lebanon.
Yep.
So it looks like Giza's pointing at pointing at the new pole or the old pole?
Giza is, let's say, the crown of the work of humanity, and it's pointing to the latest pole, pole 1, our current pole.
I agree.
That's interesting.
And so, but how old is pole 1? Pole 1 became stable 26,000 years ago. So Giza can easily be 26,000 years old.
What about the Sphinx? Is it pointing at the same spot?
15,000 years old. Sorry?
Is the Sphinx pointing the same spot, or is it pointing to an older pole?
There is some research done to some foundations beneath the Sphinx that seems to be oriented to pole 2. And then the Sphinx built on top to our current pole, pole 1. And you see these patterns all over the earth. Let's say reorientations of structures, following the path of the pole.
So what were you saying about Baalbek?
Baalbek, pole 2, older than 110,000 years. Must be correct. Older than, I have to look myself.
Yeah.
Because I have to say this correct, of course. Pole 2. I have to go to a website myself. So what everybody can look.
Your own website? Are you going to MarioBuildreps.com?
Yep. Pole 2, 130,000 to 150,000 years old.
Wow.
This is Baalbek. And so when you look at these immense stones of Baalbek, we're thinking, what kind of civilization could have made and moved these stones? And the answer is, we stare with our mouth open to these blocks and we say, I don't know. I have no idea. And do you know why? Because this was more than 130,000 years ago. So we don't know nothing about this.
What the atmosphere was like, what the conditions like, the gravity, all that stuff.
What kind of culture? What kind of high society that became lost in this 100,000 years migration, deformation cycle of the Earth? Terrible period.
Yeah. So, oh man, I meant to ask you before when we were talking about the megafauna. Would you consider? Have you done any research into like bigger humans, giants, stuff like that? I mean, is that something that would fit with the megafauna? Like, if there was larger animals, was there larger humans back then too? Because there is a lot of, myths about giants and.
Probably yes, because there are ancient texts as well.
Yeah.
Also, the Bible mentions there were once giants on the earth. Yeah. It says there. Yeah. Does it mean literally, or is it meant metaphorically? Giant.
But I mean, maybe they were moving megalithic blocks because the gravity was different too. I mean, maybe that, just a giant, because I mean, there's always the argument, that they're still not strong enough to move blocks. But I mean, if we can move, maybe they can move in relativeness to what we can move today because they're just bigger. And
this could solve part of the problem. But for let's say 1,000-ton block, this is 500 SUVs. How do you do this? Even when you're a giant.
Well, because
And you have to-
maybe the gravity was different. Maybe it wasn't, it didn't weigh that much back then or something. Or what? Have you found?
Graham, when gravity was let's say 20 or 30% less, this block is still immensely heavy, and you have to be immense giant to move this block. So there is some. This indicates. I don't say it's proof, or I'm sure. This indicates a very, very high civilization that made this.
Yeah.
And then you can, of course, ask the question, when they are so highly sophisticated, why do they make these enormous blocks?
Because they last a long time.
Yeah, they last a long time. But why? For what lasting a long time? So the question,
Tell us what happens.
Every answer generates a new question. And when we look at our culture, every culture has other typical characteristics. Our culture has characteristic to build enormous towers. And perhaps this culture had the characteristic to build with enormous blocks. So who knows the answer may say it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the evidence and the indications are clearly pointing to a trait to build with enormous blocks and less gravity and larger beings. In my opinion, don't solve the problem of Baalbek, because Baalbek is a serious problem. Moving the stones.
Yeah. So what about the unfinished aspect of these? We did a presentation with the Brothers of the Serpent because they put together all the stuff from Egypt and also Baalbek and around the world. And it seems like there's a trend of these massive, like as things got bigger and bigger, to the biggest Easter Island statue, the biggest stone of Baalbek, the biggest obelisk in Egypt, just were left unfinished. Like half what do you call it when you dig a stone out? Half excavated, half just left. Like they dropped the tools and left.
Yeah, that's a good question, of course, and we can speculate about what could cause this. And one of the speculation you could throw in the arena is that an slowly emerging disruption of the culture.
Yeah. Or
what's coming up?
What if all those ones that they mention are pointing to the same pole? What if all the unfinished sites are pointing to the same pole? I mean, that would give you a hint, I mean, if there's evidence of that. I mean, and the other thing they showed is these pillow blocks like in Egypt, and there's also similar ones in South America. And it's like they've scraped off, like the way they excavate these blocks too. They're using some tool, like I would say it's like a highly advanced civilization too. Like they're scraping these granite blocks,
scooping.
Yeah.
It's
flattening them out, like taking like 12 inches off.
We don't have the technology. Sorry, to scoop granite in this enormous amounts. We don't have this, and yet. So it seems when you look at the stones, the answer is there. It's clear. It's all over the place. It was an advanced culture using immense tools, tools.
Way longer than we thought ago.
Yeah, way longer than we thought ago. Way longer, and this could also answer the question: why don't you find tools? Where are the tools?
Where are we on the move yet again? Like, are we moving now? Are we on a pause?
Yeah, there are some. You could speculate about this, and I think there are some trends that we are on the move again, slowly, over thousands of years.
So global warming is really going to become a problem for America.
Yeah, sure. America has a. Well, no, I don't say America has a problem. But when you, for example, guys, if you look at the region of Mexico, southern Mexico, Guatemala, Nicaragua, you see dense forest. And you imagine when this location of the Earth was more to the north. It was approximately at the latitude of, let's say, Los Angeles. So pretty good climate. So it flourished. It could flourish with immense structures, immense cities, millions and tens of millions of people. And when this moved to the south, to a more, let's say, tropical region, it started to form dense forest. Culture gone long ago, new forest on top. And when they make Lidar scans, they find mega cities all over the place. It's that we are only scratching the surface. What is there? Giant cities, tens of millions of people living in an area the size of Mexico City. And how do you do this without having all kind of diseases?
Supply chain.
Supply chain. So you need an advanced culture for this. It has to have logistics. It has to have technology. It has to have planning, smart people, governments,
Health, wellness,
just name it. Technology.
Where can our listeners go to find all this stuff? You have a YouTube channel where they can watch some videos and stuff like that, where they can take this in sort of visually if they want to see some of the stuff we've been talking about for the last.
Yeah. And talk about your team too of researchers and stuff.
Yeah, I have my team is now sleeping because the work is mainly finished, and sometimes I'm doing a little bit. I'm the main author, of course, and researcher, but I have a few guys who are helping me, some brilliant guys. Jürgen, a friend of mine who lives in Canada, who helped me to write the webpage in proper English. And one other guy, Alan, who helped me with the theory of Earth crust deformation and how this exactly works. So solving really tough questions we haven't talked about yet. For example, how were the seas formed? He solved this problem. And I've written a little bit about this. But this, of course, we can talk for hours and hours about this. How were the seas formed? Why are the seas salty? Try to answer this question. And then another guy, John, in Australia, who helped me with a math lab to verify the poles. And he used pretty advanced Monte Carlo simulations in math lab programming with using my database. He put it all in the mixer, and then there were, let's say, spots. He formed spots around my red spots. So he verified the results. And they are all now sleeping at my team. And I also a little bit sleeping nowadays because I'm finished with the work, mainly. I'm not exactly publishing anymore on YouTube too much and not on the webpage, but they keep it alive and it's good to keep it alive because the research is done, and it has to be, it's freely available for people to read, to digest and what it means. And I understand it's a lot to read. It's difficult to read. It is difficult to grasp. What does this mean, Mr. Buildreps? So much about this and this and this. Where can I find? You have to look all these movies on and on YouTube and then glue it all together for yourself.
Well, Neil Adams also has some great videos on, I don't know, I'm pretty sure they're still on YouTube. We can sort of direct people there that kind of give you a good visual of how that growth sort of happened. And yeah, we had Neil on. It was 160 something. I mean, Graham will figure it out, put it in the show notes.
Yeah, Neil Adams did great work. He did visually, graphically, fantastic work. Yeah, absolutely.
And let us know when your book comes out, and we'll lead people towards your book, and maybe we can have you back on and we'll talk about your book. I mean, your website is it's a tome of massive amounts of research, and people are interested in this. They go to your website, and there's all kinds of stuff on there. So,
and I'm sure some of our colleagues are probably going to reach out to us pretty quick and get your contact information if you haven't been in touch with them already.
Okay, great. But in the meantime, people can read on mariobuildreps.com, and just you can digest and read a little bit, and what does it mean for my understanding of megalithic structures and my understanding of human cultures, and what does this mean for me. So
right on. Thanks for coming on the show, Mario, for dealing with our scheduling problems.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Come back anytime.
Okay, I will.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
And that was our chat with Mario Builder. What'd you think, buddy?
Yeah, Buildreps. Yeah, it was good.
It says Builder in the calendar.
I like it. It's
Son of a
fascinating.
bitch.
I mean, it really kind of fits in with some of the other stuff we've been working on. I mean, I like how he doesn't really agree with sort of the Randall Hancock theory about that, but about the impact. But
It's good to have competing theories.
yeah,
That's great.
on his website, he's got like city orientations around the world. It's fascinating graphs on modern cities around the world. Like his website is almost like a book in its own.
Chichen Itza's right there. It was very easy to see. What do you have? The hiccups? Yeah. Boo!
Yeah. How all the pole monuments he's got. I mean, it's all on the website. It's fantastic. So
how do you get the hiccups during a podcast?
I'm low on magnesium, I guess. I don't know.
You should be high on magnesium right now, if anything. Big thanks to Mario for coming on the show. Big thanks to you guys for listening. Even bigger thanks if you're one of the few, the 1% that choose to support our work over here, our magnum opus. Head over to grimerica.ca/support today. Sign up for monthly, make a one-time donation. Help us sort of carry that load as we head into these uncertain times of inflation and everyone else is having problems. Everyone's having problems these days, including us. We could use some more supporters over at grimerica.ca/support. If you've been thinking about it for a while, if you've been getting some volume from our 557 some odd podcasts here, all available for free, all in the back catalog, all there, all free. grimerica.ca/chat. It's a nice free chat room that we've created for you guys as well that you don't have to worry about getting kicked out of no matter what the fuck you say. All available over at grimerica.ca. You can get everything there, the books, the audiobooks, the trips, the tours. I mean, we're doing a tour with Randall here in just a few weeks. That shit is flying off the shelf right now. If you're thinking about going, head over to grimerica.ca, click on the contact at the cabin tab, or just head over to contact@thecabin.com. Get a deposit in for one of those events right away. And of course, Greg is going to announce that THC is collaborating with us on this Magic at the Mountain event in Shasta, California pretty quick. So if that's something you've been thinking about getting on, you probably want to jump on that sooner than later as well, before the THC audience starts gobbling it up. Greg don't do a lot of events, so they're going to be eager to get out and hang out with him. I think that's it. You got anything else there, Hiccup Boy?
No, that's it. Thanks.
That's it. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We love you guys, and we will see you next week.
They tell me all your stories, all the little worries you cry. They tell me what the world needs, what to say, who to please, where my loyalties should lie. They tell me what you're building, far too many stories high. The stories high. And tell me where will we be when it comes down from the sky? Oh, scattered far and wide. that were traveled, the trials and the battles. How many in all?